Thank you very much for joining this session on standards. My name is Nabi Hasan. I am head librarian at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. I am 2024 president of the engineering committee of the Special Libraries Association. A Special Library Association is a association for the library information science professionals. And I think if you become the member of the association, you may take so many advantages. For developing countries, the membership fee is $50, and we are hosting an annual conference as well. This year, we are going to host annual conference in University of Rhode Island in July. So there are various advantages of joining the Special Libraries Association for your career growth, for your professional development. With this brief introduction of Special Libraries Association, I would like to welcome our speaker of this evening or this morning in US and Canada. So friends, our webinar is on standards on cybersecurity, and we have a very senior person who is going to deliver this webinar. He is Mr. Umesh Nandwani. He need no introduction. He is a very senior person and an authority on standard. He's a postgraduate from the institution where I'm working currently, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He postgraduated in 1983. Then he worked in one of the premier space research organization known as Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO. And he retired as Director General of STQC. And presently he's involved in advocacy to increase the use of standards in policy formulation and compliance in industry and social life. So he is also associated with Bureau of India Standards. So with this short introduction, I would hand over the floor to Mr. Umesh. Mr. Umesh, you may please go ahead with your presentation. And we have about 45-50 minutes, and then we would like to answer some of the queries at the end of the session. Thank you very much. So attendees, you can post your queries in the chat box or Q&A, and would like to answer your queries once the session is over. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Umesh.
Thank you, Mr. Nabi Hasan, for nice introduction, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the participants, depending on the time zone and location where they are. And my introduction already has been given. So what I'll do is I'll just start my presentation. I'll request Mr. Swami, my colleague, to share the slides so that I can. Yeah. So let me tell you the background that how we selected this subject on standards on cybersecurity. In January 2020, when I got superannuated, I started working on the advocacy of use of standards, because during my tenure as a Director General STQC, I found that the compliance in India of various standards is not very good. And there are various reasons that penetration is low because of low awareness or infrastructure required to implement some of the standards. So then I started interacting with the stakeholders and why they should use standards in general. And then a special subject on cybersecurity was thought, because this was in a great demand in the sense that there are a lot of issues related with cybersecurity. Swami, next one. As you know that we all are entering into this digital world. Swami, next. Swami, next slide. Yeah. So just to give you a background that you know that we are entering into digital world now. Already entered. We are India is moving very fast probably other countries also moving for this new economy, what we call it digital economy, and where economy is strongly linked with the use of information and communication technology. And we know that next generation at least is dependent heavily on e-commerce, and governments also thinking to maximize the use of information and communication technologies in their economic activities, where they can blend very nicely human beings with the technology, and they go to the very granular level to fetch out the data and make some useful economic decisions. And second aspect is movement in e-governance space, where ICT is used to deliver e-services to the users, to the other state governments, industry, businessmen. So to make it very fast, effective, and efficient, that is another area where use of technology, especially ICT, is used. Now, when we say that we are using ICT to enhance efficiency and performance, there are some concerns also. Some issues comes. These issues are related with mainly from, of course, one is that infrastructure investment, and another is that issues related with cybersecurity. These are very prominent issues because success of whole e-governance, digital economy, all these things depend on how nicely we address these issues of cyber security, because they are the backbone. ICT, what we call data, information technology, communication, they are the backbone of any modern organization, government, business house. This requires infrastructure to be secure. So now, once we say that infrastructure has to be secure, next, Swami, next. What it means that? So first thing is that the people, they should know the rule of the technology, the rules of the modern digital world. So first element is the persons themselves. They should have sufficient capacity and capability, knowledge on this subject area, that what are the issues and concerns, followed by what processes are required, what technologies are required. Is it a regulated area? If yes, what are the regulations? And when we say that we know the regulation, then what are the standards which complements these regulations? So these are the issues which are necessary to understand, so that we are able to implement and make use of these technologies, ICT technologies. So we thought that why not to appraise our colleagues on this, what are those standards which they are required to know, that what are these standards, what they contain, how to implement. So concerning that, this small session, information sharing session, has been designed to expose you that some important standards and must read, I say, standards on cyber security. So before we start, there are few terms we should understand. One is that what is the meaning of cyberspace, cyber security, information security, and data privacy, because the whole game will be using these four words very frequently again and again. Cyberspace is a very complex environment resulting from the interaction of people, software, services, hardware, internet, communication components, and the various technologies which will enable to make interact with each other and make the system more efficient. And when we say this in cyber security is the protection. So security is related with protection of an IT system from the attack or damage to its hardware, software, or information, as well as from the disruption of misdirection of the services it provides. And third term is the information security, which is more simple: preservation of confidentiality, integrity, availability of the information. So it is considered that information is a asset in this digital world, and once information is the asset, we have to preserve its confidentiality, integrity, and availability. What we call it CIA in this paradigm of cyber information security. And then comes to the privacy, data privacy or information privacy, which are rights and obligations of individuals and organizations with respect to collection, use, retention, direction, disclosure, and disposal of personal information. So what we call it PII sometimes, personally identifiable information, and that privacy, it needs to be protected of any individual, what is their taste, and all these things are regulated and defined in various acts, especially in India it's IT Act which defines these requirements. Next, Swami. Next slide. Now, before coming to the standards on cybersecurity, let's understand what is a standard. A document established by consensus, that is the first keyword, and approved by a recognized body. Recognized body is the second keyword, that provides a common and repeated use rules, guidelines, or characteristics for activities or their results aimed at the achievement of the optimal degree of the order in a given context. So there has to be a context, ICT, cybersecurity, all those things. Then there has to be consensus. That's why sometimes we say that since there is a fair degree of consensus, we say it's a statement of truth. We have to accept that whatever is written in the standard. That's why standards are many times invoked in regulation or indirectly referred, uh, that for meeting that regulation, you have to follow those standards. There are two important words used in this whole game. One is that risk owner, because whole cybersecurity is associated with risk. There is a risk, that's why you need a security to counter address that risk. One has to put some controls. And what is that level of control? What is the extent of implementation of that control? That will depends the what is the level of that risk. So it's a risk-based controls, what we say. But each risk has to be owned by some entity in the organization, some individual of the organization. And once they have to implement a control, they have to execute a process to address that risk, and that process also to be owned by some individual. So those individuals are known as risk owner and the process owner. So I'll not go in detail, but what I wanted to convey here is that when we say standard and whatever we will be discussing in next half an hour, there are some keywords we should keep in mind, that is consensus, recognized body, rules or characteristics, and optimal degree of order in a given context. So standard is not an ordinary document. That's how it is different from a research paper, because many participants will be from academic institutions. So we have to be very careful. Though research papers gives you a state of art, a current status of that technology or concept, standard is established where it has gone through a consensus process, it has a wide acceptance of the industry, users, and other stakeholders, and then it is approved by a recognized body which is legally authorized to do so, and it reflects some characteristics or optimal degree of the order in a given context. So it's a very loaded definition of a standard. So I thought to tell before we start that what are the standards on the cyber security. So we have understood cyber security, we have understood information security, privacy, and a standard. Now we'll start our journey for some important cyber security standard and why we are feeling that these are important and every person should get exposure to this type of standards. Swami, next. Swami, next. So what is the relevance and importance of the standard in our life? If we see the Maslow hierarchy of needs, we start with the physiological needs, which are basically existence of your organization. Then they start giving basic services, what we call it a safety level, next level. That first is existence, then is safety, that we are safely safe, bread and butter is there, then love, belonging, and then esteem and actualization. So this is a very famous Maslow law of Maslow hierarchy of needs, that how our needs goes up and up as we move in our life, or we get more mature, and have different roles at different point of time as we mature in our existence. Next. Similarly, if we translate this Maslow pyramid in the in the context of cybersecurity, if we draw the parallel, how it will look like. First level is that we need a basic level of hygiene. So our information asset should be secure. That is the first level, that basic fundamentals we know. Many times we don't appreciate that these are so critical, and this will affect our business, our financial performance, etc. Next level of maturity comes when we identify the critical assets protection of the critical assets. All assets may not be equally critical. So because it's a risk based approach, so you have to identify what are the critical information assets. Third level of maturity will come when we will move to the digital marketplace, where what type of protections we are required if we are doing if we are entering into the era of e-commerce. And you must have heard that many people have lost money because of sharing password or sharing OTP and all those things, not following the prescribed rules and the best practices. So they are the loser. So we should understand what is the rule of the game if we are really want to go in a digital marketplace. And then in the last, we want to talk about digital democracy and advocacy of other things, human rights, all those things. That what type of controls we need. So each level, you can see that different levels of controls we need. And moment we go up, our maturity level goes up. We talk about ethics, cyber democracies, cyber human rights, and so on, which are different ballgame altogether. Globally, people are working to do research on that and bring out some standards on that. So what we'll do is we'll start from the lowest level of this pyramid and go up to the third level, because rest two levels are still standards are getting developed. Some are there, some are getting matured. So starting from basic hygiene needs on the cybersecurity and the critical requirements of the assets, what type of controls will be required if our assets are information assets are critical. So we'll try to understand that. Next. Now in ISO, now question we have seen that what is standard. Standards are made by international many bodies known as standard developing organization. They are at a national level and at international level. At an international level, International Standards Organization (ISO) develop the standards. They have various technical committees and subcommittees. And ISO, IEC, they have a joint technical committee one. ISO stands for International Standards Organization. IEC stands for International Electrotechnical Commission. Jointly, they make standard in the area of IT, ICT, and what we say is cybersecurity. They have a subcommittee 27, which is responsible to develop standards in the area of cybersecurity. So ISO, IEC, I'm repeating, JTC 1, Joint Technical Committee 1, SC 27, Subcommittee 27 is responsible to develop standards in the area of cybersecurity. So far, they have developed 242 standards in the area of cybersecurity, and 64 standards are under development. And their scope of work includes that security requirements capture methodology, how to capture the security, what are the security requirements, how to do elicitation of security requirements, how to capture those requirements and validate whether they are the correct requirements or not. So that is the first. Then management of information and ICT security, in particular information security management system. We'll spend some time that overall how to manage the information security. We'll spend some time on this bullet, because this is very important in the sense that there's a very popular, I think all of you must have heard about ISO 27001 that is developed by SC27 under this bullet. Then techniques and mechanisms, cryptographic and other security mechanisms, including but not limited to mechanisms for protecting the accountability, availability, integrity, and confidentiality of information. As I told that When we say information security, there are keywords known as CIA: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, what are the mechanisms to ensure that these three attributes are taken care? Then security management support documentation, then security aspect of identity management, biometrics, and privacy. Again, this is very important subject, identity management, because in a country like India, this subject was identified around 10 years back as a key area, and we had a Aadhaar program, which is a identity management of all individuals using biometrics, which is basically fingerprints, facial recognition systems, and iris based identity management. So in India specifically, and maybe other developing countries also, this is a very important, these standards are very important because they dictate all identity management program of a country, which sometimes becomes very critical for its security and safety. Next is the conformance assessment, accreditation, and auditing requirements in the area of information security. All this compliance part, compliance engineering, what we call it. These are also very essential requirements in the sense that they say that whether we have implemented systems effectively or efficiently or not. And then is the security evaluation criteria and methodology. So standardizing the evaluation criteria and methodology itself, and we'll see that there are standards required in the area by the there are standards by the name of common criteria, which is a product evaluation methodology for any software operating system, how to evaluate whether they are secure, what is the methodology. All these things are important. So there also we need standards for that. So next slide, Swami. So these, if you see that structure of these technical committees and working group is like this, that there is a special group responsible for management and other things, but there's four groups you can see. I have already told that information security management system, working group 1. Then there are cryptography based standards, working group 2. Like that there are 5 working groups. Fifth one is identity management and privacy relevant standards. So these are making standards in all emerging technologies. As I told that they have already these 5 working groups plus 2 special groups and made 242 ISO standards on information security and cyber security, and 64 standards are under development. So that's how this is structured at a ISO level for bringing out the standards. And next, if we see that how these standards made by these 5 working groups are distributed in 3 dimensions. If you see technology based standards, and standards which are guidelines, and standards which are focused on assessment, and whether they are product related, system related, process related, environment. In this slide you can see that different responsibility of different working groups on security evaluation, information security management system, which is working group 1. Then working group 4 on security controls and services, and working group 2 on cryptography and security mechanisms, and working group 5 on privacy, identity, and biometric security. They are more focused on environment and processes, and on the one end, and product based standards on the other end. So what message we want to give is that these working groups are making standards not only for technologies but assessment based guidelines also they are making, and focusing on product, system, processes, environment, everything. Okay, next. Now coming to information security management, as I told that SC27 most popular standard is standard known as ISMS, Information Security Management System. So as a management, how to ensure that our assets are secure in the sense that we maintain confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our information assets. So this standards is a known as ISO IC 27000 family of standards. So we'll go through very quickly what that family consists of and what ISO 27000 controls are. Very quickly we'll go through so that in our mental framework we know that how intense this subject is. Though these are very important subject, it is required to be complied with But before that, we should know that how much resources we have to put to understand this. Next. So this is ISO 27001 family of standards, which has various, you can see that 27001 is the core standard, which is a requirement standard. And this is a standard against which certification is granted. 27000 is a mother standard, which is a generic standard and gives the whole architecture of ISMS. And then there is ISO 27002, which gives the guidelines that how to implement 27001. So these are the three very important standards. Then we have another very important standard is 27005, which talks about the risk analysis. Because this whole approach is that what is the extent of control we should exercise to ensure security depends on the risk. So how to identify the risk and what type of risks are there, what is their criticality, and how to build that whole framework of any organization about risk analysis, that is given in 27005. So this whole map, you can see that it touches upon each and every aspect of security. So complete end-to-end journey of life cycle of the security is covered by mostly these standards of 27,000 family of standards. Next. Some of the must-read standards, I say, we call it, about 27,000 family and some more, IEC 62443, I'll tell in the end. ISO 27001 and 27002 is information security, cyber security, and privacy. As I already told, 27001 is a standard against which a certificate to an organization is given for their information security and all those cyber security and privacy. Then we have 27005, which is on the guidance on managing information security risks. Then we have 27031, another very important standard is readiness, ICT readiness or business continuity, that whether organization is ready as far as ICT is concerned for business continuity and implementing all these controls of the cyber security. Then next very important must-read standard is 27035, which is the information security incident management. If any incident happens, suppose some ransomware comes or there is some virus comes, then how to deal with that incident. So this tells what are the practices one should follow on the incident management. Linked with this standard is one what we call it cyber crisis management plan, CCMP. So in India, they have made it mandatory that all the ministries, all the institutions should have their cyber crisis management plan. That if any cyber crisis one comes, how they are going to deal with that, how they are going to ensure that there is a business continuity, business as usual. As far as the outside world is concerned, they don't know what is happening inside organization, and organization system is resilient enough to respond to the incidents or cyber crisis. This is a very important standard from that perspective. Then we have 22301, that is on security and resilience on business continuity management system. What are the requirements for what we call BCM? As I told, that if there is a cyber attack, how to ensure that business as usual principles are there and business continuity is maintained. Then we have 22317, which talks about the impact analysis of the business continuity. Again, very important, that how to see that what type of impact is there. If there is a different type of attacks, then what type of impacts are there, financial or technological or reputation based, and what is the extent of those impacts. Then we have 27018, which is basically on privacy, what we call it PII, personally identifiable information in a cloud environment. So again, this is a very important standard, because people who maintain processing of data related with personals, where they have a personally identifiable information. So what type of controls they should implement, like annotation of data or other controls, this standard talks about that. 27019 is a very, again, important standard for utility industry concerned with the energy sector. So power sector being a very critical, as identified as national critical infrastructure in India. So they have to, by law, they have to implement cybersecurity controls. And those controls are defined in 27019. Based on this, they have ministry has made their own standard, which is basically all the information has been taken from this standard. And now all the utilities, energy utilities like NTPC, NHPC, and other distribution companies, Central Energy Authority is making them mandatory to implement that standard 27019. And in the last, another standard is IEC. This is not by JTC 1 SC27. This is IEC standard on 62443, which is on industrial control system. That to ensure that provisions of cyber security in an industrial control system, what are the requirements that are addressed in IEC 62443. So these 9 set of standards are very important, and because there is a large number of standards, as I told, 242, it's not possible to read all those standards. The journey can be started from this set of standards. So next, Swami. Now coming to the ISMS. Now, how to start journey for implementing information security management system in the organization. Yeah, next. See, when we say that it's applicable everywhere, because information is there everywhere, data is there everywhere in all the organizations, information are the assets. Risks may be different. Risks may be different, but information is there and assets are there. So ISM is applicable. But when we go and meet people and say that they should implement ISMS, they should possess knowledge on that what type of controls they need to exercise, how to do risk assessment. They say that sometimes they say that we don't deal with any technical work, so that we are okay, it's not applicable to us. Sometimes they say that our application is hosted in the data center, so they are responsible, we are not responsible, you speak with them. Sometimes they say that after the project is complete, we hand over the deliverables to the client, so that our story ends there, and this standard is not applicable to us. And sometimes another probable answer is that we do not use a computer in our function. We do not design or develop a software, but only hardware, or we provide only services. So these are the concerns. These are the questions they generally come into their mind wherever they are. We have identified 6 roles. So depending on the different roles, they have a different questions that why it is not applicable or why it should be applicable. But they all agree they have data or information, and they agree that it's valuable and useful, and they need to protect it. And most of the times, that out of whatever data they have, some of the data is definitely very sensitive or critical for the success of the project or the work they do. Next, Swami. So the next question comes when they have data, they have information, and they agree to some extent that this needs to be protected, this needs to be secured. Again, we have to drill down and address some of the questions. Does the department or function deals with information or data? Does the data relates to any living individual? Because if yes, then if maybe personally identified information, PII, and the rules of privacy will come into the picture. Is data subject to and limited for organization use only, only internal use? Is the data critical? Now this is important. Critical when we say to the operation of the function, project, or system. So because these critical information infrastructure, which every country has, they have a different rules for imposing cyber security and information security, depending on the criticality of the data asset. They have to implement the controls, and they may be domain specific, sector specific, or technology specific. One has to understand the whole game of that. The next question comes, is the data governed by the legal, regulatory, or statutory compliances like healthcare? I know that healthcare data, especially in USA and Europe, there are governing laws, In India also, some laws are there where we need to ensure that privacy and confidentiality of healthcare data of individual has to be maintained. So answer is yes. So that wherever regulations are there, laws are there, one has to be very careful and connect it with the standards and requirements and see that how we are able to comply with those laws through by using these standards. And last question, is the data of national state interest? Then it becomes a very sensitive and critical, that if we are talking about data which is of interest to the state, or it may be a defense critical data, it may be internal homeland security data, it can be any data, then how to ensure that their security is maintained. Yeah, next. Sorry. So after identifying, answering these questions, that yes, we have data which is very critical, then we should start thinking of ensuring information security, that is secure the information and information system assets of the organization. So that is one reason. Second reason is protective measure to contain cyber incidents. This is again very important, that if it happens, first is first to ensure that this does not happen. But if it happens, then what to do? So that also tells about information security. Rules tells about how to do that, how to improve information system, quality assurance, and security assurance. And next is that how to prevent loss of revenue and reputation by implementing these best practices, and how to support organization mission so that business goals can be achieved very smoothly, because whole system is protected and no outsider can penetrate or intrude into the system, and be sure that your system is compliant to legal, regulatory, and policy stipulations. Yeah, next. So in India, we know that there is a IT Act, so regulatory compliance is required. There are various section 43, 43A, which talks about the various requirements. Then there is a national cyber security policy, which has been revised now and it's under approval process. Then each ministry has their statutory requirements. As I told, in Ministry of Power, there is a Central Electricity Authority which has their requirements of cyber security. Ministry of Health has some requirements of cyber security. And in the last, there are always some stakeholders. In any organization, there are various stakeholders whose data is there, or some contracts are there. So they want their contracts, all this, they are in the digital form nowadays. So they want that provisions of confidentiality, integrity, and availability should be met. So then in all these situations, we need to implement these standards on cybersecurity, especially this information security management system. Yeah, next. So what is this ISO 27001, which I have been talking about, information security management system? This was published long back, of course, I think now more than 20, 25 years, now more than 30 years now. And now it has been revised many times. Now 2022 latest version has come. It categorizes, it says that based on the risk, you implement various controls. Now these controls can be in different categories. So standard identifies 4 categories: organization control, people controls, physical controls, and technology controls. In this standard, there are 93 controls. Earlier version there were 114, but now they have reduced it to, they have merged in fact many controls in these 4 categories: organization, people, physical, and technology. There are 37 organization level controls, 8 people related controls, 14 physical controls, 34 technology controls. So we'll just, because this is a large number of 93 controls, it's not possible to go through and have a glimpse. What we'll do is we'll see just as an example for each category how these controls looks like. Next, Swami. So first, let's see that organization control. Organization controls means, when we see organization, it means management, governing board, policy, organization structure, duties, responsibilities, all those things. So all these controls are required at an organization level, so that information security is ensured in terms of CIA. So mainly on organization controls, role of the top management comes into the picture, where their commitment is required. They define their policy related with information security and give necessary resources so that an organization can be built and processes can be designed to translate those policies into the actions, and results are obtained. So these are the various controls in the category of organization controls. Next, people control. Next is that people also needs to be controlled so that they know that what are their responsibilities and they execute their responsibilities. They are equipped with their training and knowledge is given to them, and they have sufficient education or so that they can appreciate the risk and the associated control with that. A screening is done, what we call it a background information check or police verification, so that wherever critical information, especially critical information, is processed, people with some trust or credentials only can enter and participate in that, and they know what are terms and conditions of employment and all those things. Controls which are required to control people are highlighted in this section of the standard. So there are total 8 controls pertaining to the people category. Yeah, next. Next is the physical controls. Now physically also, that whether we have proper perimeters and secure areas are identified, and what is the office, what is the manufacturing is going on, where data processing is going on, what we call it data centers are there, and network operating center is there. So all these, how one is implementing physical control, whether there are closed circuit TVs are there, or checks are appropriate controls are exercised when people enter into the organization, and how information is stored, individuals store their information in the media, and so on. So that is the physically. Now we are out from the cyber world, and physical controls are to protect the assets. We need not only the controls on the cyber world, but also on the physical world. So these are the 14 physical controls are there in the standard. Next comes the technology controls, which are most important, which is users endpoint devices, whether it can be a mobile device or laptop or desktop. Privilege access rights. So there are totally 34 technology controls. These are most important. That technically also organization should put some controls, like how to protect against a malware. So how to ensure that technical vulnerabilities which are reported time to time are addressed and plugged, and now nobody can attack your system. How to ensure that configurations are proper, and so on. So there are 34 technological controls in the standard. So total, if you sum up, 37 organization controls, 8 people controls, 14 physical controls, and 34 technology controls, it comes out to be 93 controls. But all may not be applicable. So there is a process that how to identify out of these 93 controls which are applicable. So there is a process in which is given in the standard, known as statement of applicability. So that we'll not discuss because it's a slightly complex process. Next. Now comes the compliance now. Once implemented these 93 controls, standard says that you conduct the audit and see whether what is the degree of the compliance. So these has to be again risk-based audits. Wherever risk is more, go very rigor. Audit of the rigor should be very high. Frequency should be high. And then you see that how that control has been designed. Test that design of the control. And then what is the operating efficiency of that control. Do the vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, and all those requirements by which you can conclude that whether the whole system is efficient and compliant with the requirement. So auditing also is a very critical step in the whole mechanism, and there is a specific standards for the auditing of the ISMS, Information Security Management System. Yeah. Next. So in the end of the day, we can find out what is the compliance. Yeah, this is a continuation of that. There are two very popular standards, ISO 27001 and SOC standard for SOC is more popular in USA, 27,000 more popular in especially in Europe and everywhere. So
Umesh sir,
ISO
we
standard.
have 10 minutes maximum.
Yeah,
And
almost. I'm,
there is some disturbance from your mic, like you are hitting perhaps the mic.
okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. So there are various standards, two very popular. I have just tried to compare that what is the difference and what is the commonality. ISO 27,000 is a very popular standard, definitely, and people generally most of the people comply with that until unless there is a contractual requirement of yeah. Yeah, next. So some of the other very popular standards, I will not go in detail. One is that, of course, I have told ISO IEC 27,000 family of standards. Then there is a CIS standard, Center of Internet Security, which is more popular in the hardware or infrastructure security, because it gives some benchmark that how to ensure your cloud is secure, operating system is secure, mobile is secure, and so on. So next, this is another 15408 ISO standard on common criteria. This is basically product standard, focusing again on not a management system. This is a product specific standard, like you have to make a protection profile and secure identified security target and test in a laboratory that product. For example, it's a mobile or your laptop, whether these things are secure. In power system we see SCADA system, whether these are secure or not. So this set of standard, there are three parts: part 1, part 2, part 3, is gaining very popularity, and India is a member of that ISO IC 15408, and we are implementing. We are the authorized people, only authorized people in India to implement those standards. They are now gaining very popularity. Yeah, next. 18043 is one of the standard, again very popular standard on the deployment and operation of intrusion detection system to see whether any vulnerabilities are coming or anybody is trying to penetrate your system. How to do, what type of instrumentation you have to install. Again, very important. CIS already I have told 22301 is a ISO standard on business continuity management. It's not by JTC1 SC27, but how to ensure that your business continuity is maintained. And then 28,000 is on supply chain. This subject is becoming very important. There is a specific standard on supply chain security by JTC1, but this is a very generic standard which gives principles and all those things. Yeah, next. Then there are some organizations, like one is very popular is NIST, National Information Security Technology, which is by USA Ministry, their Homeland Security and Commerce. They have published 800-115 NIST, which is on testing and assessment. Then we have a science security policy resources. You can see on the website. OWASP is another foundation which gives the standards on application security, open web application security. Again, very popular standards. Then we have 27,037. Again, very popular standard for the law enforcement bodies, where it talks about the digital evidence. Yeah, next. Yeah, there are various standards. I will not go in detail. Cloud Security Alliance, Payment Card Industry Data Standard known as PCI DSS, and Supply Chain 20243-1. It's becoming now, this is by Open Group, not now adopted by ISO. This has become very important. And because supply chain is gaining momentum now, so one has to read this standard 20243-1. I recommend that. This is difficult to implement, but yes, one should know that what are the nuances of this standard. Yeah, next. Yeah, 17 I have already told earlier. 27400 is on Internet of Things. So same framework, 27,001, but context IoT, and how to interpret this standard into the context of IoT. 17 is for cloud, and 29147 is how to disclosure of the vulnerabilities. If you find some vulnerability in your system, how to disclose that, which are the authorities you should inform, and what should you do. and 3011 is very much linked with 29147. So these are the important standard. I think I've finished now here. Next. Yeah. So what we say is standards are to industry as a culture to the society. So if we have to build a discipline, a hygiene in the industry, we should identify what are the standards implemented to that. And educational institutions have a role to play, where we have a faculty giving consulting, providing trainings. Then we have research scholars. Then we have MTech students which make their projects. They should know that what are the standards on the information security. So thank you very much. That was the purpose of introducing the subject, and now we can have some questions on this subject.
Thank you very much, Umesh sir, for such a wonderful presentation. I am surprised that the people who joined initially, they are still with us. And in fact, we have close to 150 unique attendees as of now as well. Uh, and we have this number throughout the session as well. So I launched a poll about the recording and PP to be shared. So 92% of the people want the recording and the PPT as well. So don't worry, we will be sharing the PPT and the recording as well. I have all the emails and I will be sharing that with you as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So there is a, sir, can you tell about cyber kill chain? I don't know. Umesh sir,
Hanji, Hanji.
what is
Cyber kill.
this cyber kill chain? If you
No,
really know, you can answer. I have not heard
yeah,
about it.
no, I have also not heard. I don't know.
So,
Is it cyber? I'll come back. Let me do some study. I'll come
yeah,
back.
yeah. Ravi, do you know yourself something about this? You can like help us understand this new thing. I have not heard about cyber kill chain. I can unmute you or you can answer in the chat itself.
We
So
know about cyber supply chain. I think
this is cyber kill chain.
no, no, I know about supply chain.
Okay. If you want to like question, if you have any question you want the answer live, I can like allow you. You can raise your digital hand as well. Okay. Rabi, perhaps you might be knowing about cyber kill chain. If you want to answer, you are most welcome. I can allow you to speak. Ravi. Ravi, would you like to speak? Is there any question you can raise your digital hand? I think Umesh sir has covered comprehensively everything. So I think there are no.
Hello,
Yeah. Yes, Ravi.
sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Sir, in cyber kill chain, we use it to identify threat actors, like what they are doing. Like we use it as a SOC tool to identify threats, and it
Oh,
helps us to identify but
okay.
which
Okay.
particular
Thank you.
cyber threat
So,
is
but
this.
mhm.
Okay, Ravi. Thank you very much. So we have another question from Dr. D.D. Lal. D.D. Lal is a dear friend of us from Delhi NCR. He's from National Brain Research Institute. Dr. D.D. Lal, you have some question or like clarification? You can speak. You have been unmuted.
Thank you, Dr. Nabi, and thank you, Dr. Umesh, for that wonderful presentation. So my question is about that cyber security for the childrens. So nowadays, mobile is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mobile is very common for the childrens, and they are using. So I also face that this kind of problem along with my children. So somebody giving bluff that so you will get job, you will earn some money, and they are giving some link, and people are
Yeah,
suppose that the children are clicking and they're trap on that cyber,
yeah.
and many frauds are happening.
Yes.
What is the role of librarian? How we can avoid these kind of activities to aware about that children,
Uh-huh.
basically
No,
those who are young
Yeah.
children.
Okay, Dr. Lal. So, Umesh sir, you have to
Yeah,
give a
I'll tell
quick
you.
answer because
But
we
yeah,
have
very
limitation of
quickly, I'll
time.
say that there is actually NIST USA is doing a lot of research on that. They have published NIST 800 series, dash 3, NIST A18, which is freely downloadable. You can just go through that. There, there many attributes are covered. One attribute is on the addressing issues related with children's use of mobile. It's a mobile-based standards on cybersecurity, and how to address that. That that element is addressed in that standard. So immediately I'll not be able to answer that what controls you should exercise, but you can refer NIST 1800-3 and find out that what is the list of controls
Okay.
the stakeholder has to implement that.
Umesh sir, there is a small question. Can you tell us about primate of pain? Primate of pain, PRIMAT of pain. It is in Q&A. If you are like familiar.
No, I'm not familiar. Sorry, sir.
Then there is a question from Surekha Kaulji. How far implementation process is going on in India? If yes, then why cyber war? And if no, what more need to be done to protect our country from cyber war?
This is a very interesting question. See that.
You can see in the Q&A as well if you could not like
No,
understand.
I understood this. This is because this is a this is a current topic, very hot topic. And let me answer this way. National Critical Infrastructure, which comes under Ministry of Home, they have made a framework which is based on ISO 27001, and they have told all critical infrastructure, which includes power sector, power and energy, that includes defense, that includes avionics, that includes manufacturing sector, financial sector, etc., healthcare sector. Now, first they have identified power sector immediately to implement that, because there are some news that our adversaries may try to damage our whole infrastructure of the power. So that's why they have taken this on a most priority, and that framework is ready. It has been approved by all bodies, authorities, and very soon they are going to make it a mandatory implementation. And it's a very robust type of infrastructure, as good as comparable with Singapore, USA, and a lot of investment also they have done. So my answer is yes, India is getting ready
Umesh sir,
to
can you
address all these
please
concerns.
switch
But
on
these
your
concerns are very,
you can switch on your video as well. Just couple of questions quickly we'll take. So my friend Penny Forresto has shared a link in the Q&A about this all the detail about the you can say cyber kill chain. He has shared a link. There are all the details, Ravi. You can go through those details. So another question is from Lokesh, and how being as an individual can contribute in policy formation for cybersecurity. So it's a like it requires comprehensive answer, but quickly in a line or two, you can please help. How being as an individual can contribute in policy formation for cybersecurity.
see, cyber security policy formulation at a national level, responsibility lies with the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. They have a cyber security policy which is quite old, as I told, in 2013, which has been revised and under now formal approvals and all those things. No, they put it on their website for public comment. So individual should read that, see that adequacy and comprehensiveness of that, and give their comments. That is one way. Not a organization level cybersecurity policy. Definitely, wherever you are working, you must be having internal mechanisms to see that how your top management take the views from the individual stakeholders or concerns, that but if any input is desired. So that depends on organization to organization.
Umesh,
Yes.
there is a very general question. If library professionals ignore the cyber security, what are the impact they will face?
No, I'll answer this question from the two perspective. One is that I feel that this is a library of knowledge on this cybersecurity, which is applicable to all. especially to the students, to the faculty. So to give access to this knowledge, they should have the resources in the library. That is one different aspect, that how to ensure that people get the right knowledge on that. So that is equipping knowledge in the library. Now, second is that suppose you don't have information security in a library and all your books are on a digital form, because this is applicable if your assets are in the digital form, and anybody can attack. It can spoil their system. That information will not be available to students and lecturers if that information system goes hacked, and then there may be a breakdown. Because I'll tell you why this is important. See, many of the time faculties are giving consulting to a very critical projects. I know IIT faculties are there in the boards of many projects, national level, power systems, healthcare systems, and if they need any information and library is not working, I think it goes a very bad taste that such a premier institution, if they are not able to protect their library resources, which are required at a time when a critical decision government is going to take, and a member says that no, my library is not working, sorry, I'll not be able to give input. So one has to, it goes with a reputation loss. So I'll say that to protect yourself from a reputation loss, please ensure your digital books, digital library are safe, secure, and available. Information is available to the concerned person whenever it is required.
Okay. Romesh sir, we will take couple of questions quickly. At least two questions we have. One is from Harihar Rao. And the question is, how far the cyber security safeguarding in the larger populated countries like India? How far the cyber security safeguarding in the larger populated countries like India?
So this is again very interesting question, in the sense that, as I told, National Critical Infrastructure Information Center, NCI IPC, is the body which is responsible to do this, whatever has been asked now. How India is a very big country, all sectors are there. We have all critical, as I told, power, railway, healthcare, finance, all sectors are there. And they have a program in place for each sector. They are bringing out guidelines and a requirement for implementing those controls. Already they have brought out for power sector. Rest will be coming out in due course. So power, so and it's regulated. So these regulators, NCIPC, which is a regulator by IT Act, will ensure that there is a compliance, good degree of compliance to all the, they call it critical sector entity. Word used is the critical sector entity. So all the listed critical sector entities which have CII, critical information infrastructure, needs to protect this information infrastructure by different means. So there's a map. We know that there are hotspots where compliance is poor, and there are good level of compliances organization also. No, I know NTP, some organizations are implementing very nicely. So yes, there is a variation, but yes, there is a roadmap also to comply.
So I would like a quick answer for a couple of questions again, like any security regarding deep fake.
Yeah. These are general security principles, and I think these are mostly covered by ISO 27001.
Okay. And can you discuss about social engineering on AI age? In AI age,
Yeah,
social
yes, social
engineering in
engineering
AI age.
has see that center. Yeah, center. Hanji. Social engineering has been covered very widely by uh, very widely by Center of Internet Center of Internet Security. And I told about in my PPT. If you see, I talked about the red team and blue team, though not discussed. I have not discussed, but these requirements are very well covered in various standards. Now, this is not a very new subject. Now, this is a very matured. People have understood this about the social engineering, and how to prevent that, how to ensure that people know that what are their responsibilities and what, up to what extent they have to share the information, and they know the all the human aspects of the social engineering. So these all are addressed in the standards.
Umesh sir, I think it's already 9:06 and like we have guests from other countries as well. And I think we would like to close it. We still have few questions, but like those are general questions. They require much more time. So friends, thank you very much for joining this evening, this morning. And we are grateful to Umesh sir for sparing his valuable time. He's an authority on standards. I think you can send email to him if there are further questions. And I will be sharing the recording of this webinar with all of you, those who have been registered using your email ID. And I hope Umesh sir will have no objection in sharing his PPT as well. Umesh sir, would you like to share your updated PPT with us?
There is no problem from my side. Actually, this is
Okay.
copyrighted by Book Supply Bureau. So I think officially they will give you all
Okay.
the.
So, friends from Book Supply Bureau, Swami and Mr. Gupta, we are grateful to you on behalf of IIT Delhi, on behalf of Special Libraries Association, USA. I'm representing here today basically SLA. I'm currently the president of the engineering committee. So, thank you very much. And I hope we will be hosting more webinar on topics of like mutual interest. And I'm grateful to my colleagues from USA, all those who have joined, Betty and all my friends. So hope to see you sometime in person as well there in USA. Thank you very much. And please allow me to like close this webinar. Thank you. Thank you.